Hello, and welcome to episode 100 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a review, tell a friend, help get the word out there. I am happy that you are celebrating number 100 with me. I started this podcast on January 2nd, 2021, World Introvert Day. And since then, we've had so many amazing guests and discussed important topics, especially for introverts. This show is about the strengths and needs of introverts, along with some strategies for success. And we also do plenty of myth busting about introversion. The guests have been introvert experts, advocates, champions, therapists, and psychologists, and successful professionals that have learned to lean into their introversion and find success because of their introversion and not in spite of it. They have also learned how to advocate for their needs and set appropriate boundaries. I'm grateful for each of my guests as they have each shaped my life and my journey in a significant and unforgettable way. They've told inspiring stories of their own journey and offer great strategies for success as they approach life in their own introverted way. I've had a couple of extroverted guests that also understood and celebrated introversion with us. I encourage you to go back and look at the past episodes if you're interested in any specific topics. And remember, introversion is a beautiful thing, and it's time that it's well understood and embraced by us as individuals and society as a whole. So to celebrate episode 100, I want to review the top 10 topics, especially for introverts, from the podcast. So the top 10, one was, what is introversion? Another, overcoming shyness and gaining confidence. Another, managing or overcoming social anxiety. Another, career clarity. And then public speaking and time management and productivity. Overcoming overwhelm, leadership, small talk strategies, and just the topic overall of celebrating introvert strengths. So we're going to go over briefly how we've talked about these topics on the show. And again, if there's any that are of particular interest and you want more information, go back and review some of the previous episodes. So first, what is introversion? Our personalities come to us quite naturally. And the key is not to change them, but get to know ourselves and embrace those great gifts that we each have. For the longest time, I thought something was wrong with me. And I've had so many guests say something similar. I ask each introverted guest to talk about their journey of understanding their introversion and then embracing it. These stories are so important, and especially if you're still feeling that there is something wrong with you. Trust me, there is nothing wrong with you. And if you are feeling this way, know that you're not alone. You can be your authentic self and have great peace and truly get what you want out of life. And that's what this podcast is all about. I know that for too long, I tried to be something that I wasn't. And now that I'm embracing my introversion and who I am and my strengths, I have found more happiness, effectiveness, and energy than ever before. That's the key, self-awareness. I have a favorite quote from Aristotle, which is, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Over and over, I hear from my guests and other introverts that it is learning your introverted strengths and leaning into them for success. The great part is that success often comes from introversion and not in spite of it. We also do myth busting on the show. One of the biggest myths is that introversion is the same thing as shyness, and it's often used interchangeably. However, they are two completely different things. Both introverts and extroverts can be shy because shyness is basically a lack of confidence in a particular situation. The good news is that shyness can be overcome and confidence gained with some self-awareness. Overcoming shyness is also one of the biggest topics, which we'll also get into next. So here's more on the definition of introversion. Often I hear the main difference between introverts and extroverts is where we get our energy, and introverts are drained by people and need to be alone to recharge. I do think that this is a major difference, and energy is an extremely important aspect of this conversation, as we will differ in how we recharge. but it is not what makes us introverts. My definition of introversion is that as introverts, we turn inward to our inner world of ideas more often than not. We are deep thinkers or deep feelers, or both. We have vivid imaginations, and often we are big dreamers. That's what makes us introverts. Extroverts are going to pay more attention to the outside world around them. Let me say this, neither is good or bad. Everyone spends some time in their own heads thinking, and everyone also pays some attention focused on the world around them. But what is your natural preference? And the key word is natural. Where do you spend the most time? Focused inward to your thoughts and feelings, or focused outward on the external world? I want to be clear that we're not saying that introverts are defective extroverts. Introverts don't need fixing, but we all need understanding. I also get frustrated sometimes when I hear, oh, you just need to pretend to be an extrovert. You will never hear me give that advice. My response is, what you need is to be true to your own strong, introverted self. Another myth that we bust regularly is that introverts don't like people. It's kind of silly. We all need connection, and it's going to look different for everybody. I think we learned a lot from the worldwide pandemic, with many being forced into different situations and really considering the connection that we each need. The important questions to me around introversion are, what are your strengths and what do you need? What about those around you? Here's my simple definition. We naturally do a lot of thinking. We usually think before we speak, and we often do best with a little solitude each day. Again, introversion is not something to overcome, but to be embraced. So, overcoming shyness and gaining confidence has also been a very popular topic. As we just mentioned, introversion is not shyness. If you're a shy introvert, you can learn to be confident. This is a very common question I ask my guests. How do you gain confidence as an introvert? Confidence or self confidence comes when you believe that you have great value, much to offer, and are worthwhile in your uniqueness. Are you a confident introvert? If not, this is something you can change. You can gain confidence in your worth and uniqueness and the gifts you have to offer the world. We all have individual strengths and needs. Confidence comes in knowing what our own strengths are and not comparing ourselves to others. I've gained a lot of confidence in myself through growing self awareness and understanding my strengths and needs. As an introvert, maybe one of your strengths is the ability to think deeply and have a great imagination. You may be able to dream up great ideas, innovative solutions, solve complex problems, or tell amazing stories. With your gifts, you may need time to process and prepare. You may need time to process during conversations, and this doesn't mean that you're shy. You may never talk nonstop, and that's not the goal of the show, but you absolutely can learn to do your best work and have your voice heard. There can be many causes of shyness, so I'm not saying that all shyness could be related to not understanding introversion. I just know that there are some things about introversion, if you don't understand, could make you shy or take away some confidence. I think it's very helpful to learn from confident introverts on how they have gained confidence. And I may still appear quiet at times, but I'm quiet and strong or confident. I'm always going to spend time in my head. It's a great thing about me. I come up with great ideas. I enjoy it. Sometimes I need to be alone. Sometimes I don't mind being alone, but often I need company. I have learned that I can create the friendships and connections that I want. You can be very successful and have your voice heard. So, closely related to shyness is social anxiety, and this has been a very popular and important topic as well. They're not the same, but I believe that understanding your introversion can be extremely helpful in managing or overcoming social anxiety. We all can get nervous from time to time, and it's normal. But social anxiety is when we are so fearful of social situations and it becomes debilitating in some way. When you're fearful or worried about embarrassing yourself or being judged harshly so much that it prevents you from living the life you want and causing you pain, that's social anxiety. I know for me and many out there, understanding introversion can be a key to either managing or overcoming social anxiety. This combined with changing your negative thoughts can work wonders. I know I have the power to change my thoughts, control my fears, and have a calmness in my life and be strong. One strategy for me is reminding myself that I'm not perfect, but nobody is. And through our episodes, we've discussed great tips and strategies for managing or overcoming social anxiety for the introvert. I hope you have found these helpful. But if you or someone you know needs additional help or are experiencing a mental health crisis, please talk to a trusted friend, relative, or reach out to a professional. And this goes for anything that we're talking about today. So, career choices for introverts is also another popular topic. I'm often asked, what is the best job for introverts? And along with my work on introversion and personalities, I've spent the majority of my career working in higher education, helping students find those courses and programs that will lead to achieving their goals. And in my opinion, most jobs could be held by either an introvert or an extrovert. An introvert will bring a unique set of skills, as an extrovert would also have their own unique set of skills. Either could excel in most jobs. So, what's the best job for introverts? My answer is the job that uses a person's individual strengths and fulfills their needs. There are far too many stereotypes for an estimated half of the population of what is or isn't an appropriate career for introverts. I know there are plenty of jobs I would dread. For me, just the thought of outside sales sends me into a cold sweat. However, if this was something I wanted to do, I could excel by doing it in my own way where I utilize my strengths. The way I would work would look much different than an extroverted salesperson. And I have heard, and through some of my guests and other things, that there's a lot of great introverted salespeople out there. Get to know your strengths and needs. Do your research on yourself and also the careers out there. When you love your work and spend most of your time working within your strengths, it doesn't feel like work. I always say life is too short to dread every Monday. Sometimes I hear people that aren't very old talking about how they can't wait until retirement. This is no way to live. Find work where you're fulfilling a purpose and feel like you're making a difference and finding fulfillment. Of course, your work does need to provide you the income you need for you and those you support. If someone tries to tell me that money doesn't matter, I can't help but think they have never gone without it. Money does matter. Of course, how much someone wants, that's a whole other story, but it is important to have enough to meet your needs. Does your working situation allow you to address your needs as an introvert? As an introvert, I recognize I need some quiet time, but also need some time working and interacting with others. Your needs may be different than mine, and you may want to mostly work alone or some other combination. Or you may need a completely quiet atmosphere or work better when there's noise. But the important piece is to find a work situation that allows you to do your best because your needs are being met most of the time. Public speaking for introverts has been a big topic on the podcast. Another myth that we regularly bust is that introverts can't be great public speakers. I love public speaking. Hey, I'm an introvert and I'm celebrating episode 100 of my podcast. When it comes to public speaking, preparation is key for me because I want and need to think about things before speaking. I have learned that I am going to prepare for a speech differently than an extrovert would. If I'm an expert in a subject and I've done the thinking already, the words come more naturally to me. It's those topics that I have not spent a lot of time thinking about that can really give me trouble. I do need to think about topics and process them in my mind before speaking about them. In my everyday life, I've learned that it is okay to take some time to think and let people know. However, in a presentation, it doesn't usually work to stop and think. So to prepare, think about the following questions. Who's your audience? What are the key points that you want to drive home? How much time do you have? I spent some time, at least a few days ahead of time, putting my initial thoughts together. And after I've done this initial preparation, I stay open to new ideas or modifications that come into my head in those days leading up to the presentation. I write these down as they come to me. My mind is always going, so this approach works well after I've done the initial work. Does it work for you to rehearse? If so, do it and get some feedback. I like to think quite a bit beforehand, but for me, I rarely do a run through. For some reason, practicing or role playing doesn't work really well for me. Again, what works for you? When you're comfortable with the material, it'll be easier to get your points across with having to think too much. The morning before the event, I purposely do not plan anything else. I go over my notes and relax as I think about my message. Early on in my career, I did get extremely nervous before a speech or presentation, but this is rarely the case now. So you can be a great presenter or public speaker, and it is important that your voice is heard. If you're struggling, check out some past episodes on the topic, and we will continue to discuss this on the podcast. Many topics for introverts need to be approached with introvert strengths and needs in mind. This is important in the case of time management and productivity. As I was discovering that I was an introvert, I was extremely busy. I had a full-time job. I run a separate business with my wife. I have 3 amazing kids, and I had started the Quiet and Strong website and blog. So I was also studying time management. And as I was studying time management, I was realizing there wasn't much written that was directed specifically towards time management for the introvert. But yet there were some very specific needs that the introvert would have. And so I decided to make this my first book, which is called Minding Your Time, Time Management, Productivity, and Success, especially for the introvert. And when you're considering your time management strategy, remember, we do a lot of thinking as introverts. We do need some recharge time. So your strategy should include time to clear your mind, quiet time for certain tasks and projects, time to prepare, to plan, to reflect, and to think, and to dream. And of course, time to recharge each day and throughout the day in order to be effective. In my book, I lay out 7 key areas to consider as you're making your time management strategy. They are focus on the important, time to recharge, balance of quiet, avoiding overwhelm, managing ideas, getting organized, and planning your week. As an introvert, your approach to productivity and time management will be different from an extrovert, as your strengths and needs are different. And being productive, it's not about being busy, but it's about doing the right things that are meaningful to you. Another of the 10 topics have been avoiding or overcoming overwhelm. As I just mentioned, this is a part of your time management strategy as an introvert. Have you been overwhelmed? Are you overwhelmed now? You can often avoid being overwhelmed, but likely you will find yourself overwhelmed from time to time and need to find ways to get out of it. You should do your best planning, and that will take care of a lot of overwhelm, but you never know what can come at you at any given time. After our best planning, overwhelm can still strike, and it's important to step back and to review our priorities. And know things are going to be okay. I really like this quote from Marcus Aurelius. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Sometimes you have to consider what needs to be done and what has to wait. And remind yourself, it's all going to be okay. You may have to reframe your thoughts and reprioritize and make a plan for how you're going to get things done and not be sucked in by all the negative thoughts that you might have. Step back and prioritize whenever you're feeling overwhelmed. We can't do it all. So give yourself some time for a little retreat and give your highest priorities some serious thought. Maybe sometimes you can travel somewhere or maybe it's just finding a way to get some time alone. For me, this is often getting up earlier on a Sunday morning before the rest of the family for some much needed quiet. And in the quiet, you can consider what is most important for you and what is not. The discussion of leadership has been a theme throughout the podcast. Can introverts make great leaders? Of course. For me, this isn't even a question. I believe the better question to the introverted leader is, what are your natural gifts and how can you use those to lead? As an introvert, I found that I need to be true to myself. As a leader, this means using your own unique strengths to help your team accomplish tasks and projects while you inspire and support those around you. I've learned that over the years that by understanding and using my natural strengths and abilities, I am so much more successful and happy than when I tried to act like someone else. For me, this means that I engage in work that I'm passionate about. My passion drives me to become the expert. I challenge myself and those around me to get better. I naturally analyze things, and I'm constantly looking for innovative ways of doing things. My mind never stops thinking. I see connections between things, and I'm always putting things together to improve. I'm very good at preparing for meetings, projects, and presentations. These are some of my strengths. You might have some of the strengths that I just mentioned, but you will also have some of your own that are unique to you. What are your strengths? Are you using them? Yes, introverts can be amazing leaders. How they go about leading may look different than the extroverted leader, but we need both introverted and extroverted strengths and leaders in our workplaces. Small talk is a hot topic for introverts and has been a popular topic on the podcast. Many introverts don't like small talk, and many don't feel like they are very good at it and can be anxious about it. This can be the same issue or two different things. We have discussed why small talk can be a challenge for introverts and how to improve it if that's what your desire is. I've had my own struggles with small talk, and it was overwhelming at times. As I came to understand myself and my introversion, I came to the conclusion that small talk may not be interesting to me for its own sake. Introverts are deep thinkers and may not care to talk about the weather or the price of gas. However, small talk can be a great tool to build relationships in all aspects of our lives. Introverts need connection and meaningful relationships. Think of small talk as the road to the deeper conversations introverts enjoy. It's okay to talk about the weather or gas if you don't have anything else to say, even if it's not something you're particularly interested in. People can get better at small talk with some thought and practice. Also, we think before we speak and may need some time to think, especially about new topics. This is probably why we don't like to walk into a room of 50 strangers and move from person to person and come up with new things to say to a new person in a rapid fire sort of way. We need to remember that extroverts may love conversations just for the sake of it, and often introverts are looking for deeper connections. The differences between introverts and extroverts are not good or bad, just different. As an introvert, we can prepare for all types of events and conversations. And remember, you can't perfectly prepare for anything, and give yourself some grace when those awkward moments arrive. Celebrating introvert strengths is the 10th topic I'm mentioning as being popular on the podcast. It is something that all episodes are meant to do. I've had some amazing guests that have helped me celebrate. Continue to celebrate introversion with me. Let's get to know our strengths and needs. Let's bust myths such as introversion is shyness or the introverts don't like people. Don't try to be an extrovert, but use your own strengths to succeed in your own introverted way. You have great gifts. Do you know what they are? Are you using them? Are you known for them? Be proud. Celebrate who you are. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you take the time to explore other episodes and learn from some great guests. and join me for the next 100 episodes as we celebrate introversion. I'd love to connect with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Share posts, make comments, join in the conversation about how introverts are amazing. I so appreciate the feedback and support that you have shown for the Quiet and Strong podcast and work. Please continue to send me topics or guests you'd like to see on the show. There's so many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.